on any of your social media platforms, like thousands of people can see it, as opposed to when you have to send like, a second copy by mail to people, and I'm wondering how you think about negotiating boundaries in the digital world and what you share and don't share with people.
So that is an interesting thing, especially I've been trying to be as conscious of this as possible, just because you are sharing yourself and you're giving people an insight into your world, and how people share is really interesting, and how people curate what they share is really interesting. Mm-hmm. I haven't completely come up with exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. I knew when I became a first mom, when I first became a new mom, I was like, I'm not going to post pictures of my kid, at all. And you can see that in the pictures that I posted at the beginning. After a month I had given birth, I didn't even tell people I was pregnant on social media, because I just wanted it to be a personal thing. And it is a very personal thing that you're going through. And I didn't want to showcase that to the world personally. And I wanted to be more conscientious of how I was sharing that news. I wanted to do it in person, and I wanted to talk to my friends about it, and talk about the fears that I was having and the excitement that I was having about becoming a new mom. And as I've become a mom, I've started sharing a few pictures of my son, because I started realizing I'm not like a big public figure, right? So it's not like I have thousands of people looking up to me or following me on social media. But what I realized is that I do have a small network, and that small network was also starting to become moms, and was also going through similar things that I was, and was probably also kind of scared of things that they were going through. And so that the fact that I started sharing what was happening was more important, because we could then relate and talk about some of these issues that we're having, maybe come up with ways to help each other. Right? So if my kid was, recently I was on a plane, and for 20 minutes straight on the plane right down, Zubin started crying like crazy. And if I can just share that with a friend of mine and just start asking them and, hey, what did you do? How did you do it? It's only a great way for us to help each other and create this community or this network where we can share this information and help each other, which is, again, like getting help from others is for yourself is a form of self-care, and just making sure that you're keeping yourself at your best. So that has been an interesting transition. I used to never post pictures of my kid's face, and I don't know what my kid's going to feel about how I've been posting pictures of him, but I've been trying to post things that wouldn't be a complete public embarrassment to him, and things that hopefully, like my posts, I try to be more conscious about what's happening, so that if there is something that's happening in other people's lives that, they want to talk about and they want to share and we can relate to each other, I try to do posts that are a little bit more conscious based off of the things that I'm experiencing, and that hopefully it helps somebody else.
And do you think that it also, whether it's sharing what you're learning or creating a community where people can provide support and information for you, do you think there's value in I think that in social media, because we have these kind of curated realities, it's very rare that you see people raise their hand and say, like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Can someone please help me? and that's something I really appreciate about the way you curate, the way you share on your social media, is that you share when there's, whether, I don't know if insecurity is the right word, but whether it's like just stuff you don't know, where you're looking for, where you're like, this is hard. How do I do this better? And I think oftentimes in our kind of curated social media realities, it's always like, it's like curating your best self, and you don't share the picture of you crying. And I think it's interesting and probably really beneficial to folks to see that, like, people don't know what they're doing, and that it's okay that you don't know what you're doing. It's affirming, I think, even if people don't necessarily have answers and solutions. And seeing you do that actually inspired me to start sharing some of that as well. That when I was not sure of something, obviously I'm not a parent, but in other areas of my life, when I'm not sure of something or I'm kind of navigating something challenging, I try to kind of live that out loud, because I feel like that affirmation is important. And have you thought about that piece of it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think I was always trying to show this, stronger self of me of like, yeah, I always know what I'm doing. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation today where somebody was just like, you seem like you have it so together. I was like, yeah, it always comes off that way, but you don't know the inner workings of my mind and my brain, and there's always something going on. And I'm trying to actually do more of that now, being more conscious of not always posting the best parts of my life, but things that I'm just going through. And that's what I mean by that. As a mom, I've just let that guard down, and I didn't do that before because I feel that we always need to show our best, and we really necessarily don't. I think people are talking more about failures, and hopefully people aren't doing that because they think it's like a hot topic to talk about your failures, but really that it's only going to help the next person to be their better self and to be more open about who they are and transparent. And I think as millennials, we respect when people are more, when people are just authentic, transparent, and just showcasing who they really are as opposed to who they want people to believe. So it was interesting. Somebody said, on Snapchat, people showcase who they really are. On Instagram, people showcase what they think they want the world to see. So it's interesting how people use different platforms. And there have been a ton of memes with this as well, where people, because Snapchat disappears, and so people don't feel like they need to be so curated with every single post that they do because they know it'll go away. They can be their true selves. And hopefully people see that they can do that on every platform that's out there. And it's important to be that way on a lot of platforms and not just one. But yeah, I mean, I think that I'm actually, even for Instagram, I'm trying to curate posts about my insecurities. So even though they're, curated posts, but there are things that I've gone through that I was really self-conscious about or upset about, or just things that I want people to know that happened to me. But I don't want it to always be like, oh, guess what? I did this amazing thing and you should all love me for it, but I also went through this really hard thing, and hopefully you can gain something from this, or I just want you to know that I went through it because you're my friends and my family. And hopefully if something like this was to happen to you, you would know how to deal with this certain situation.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's almost as though, there's so much criticism of millennials and consumption of media and just the proliferation of media. But it seems that for people who are digital natives or almost digital natives, it's that there's like this intelligence about consuming media. So like the desire for authenticity is because we know what a curated post looks like, and we know you don't look like that every day, right? Yeah. And so people have an appreciation, I think, because we have a more kind of familiarity with it, of that authenticity. And also I think the Snapchat thing is interesting because I don't have either Snapchat or Instagram, but what you're saying to me makes so much sense, because it's like when I have a pimple on my face, it is only for a short period of time, right? Like it's not always there. Yeah. And so in that way, it's almost like more realistic that struggle, that moment of challenge is a moment, and it does go away and you kind of transition to the next thing. So in that way, it's almost more true to life than platforms where things stay forever. And I wonder in, 20 years when we're starting to see now with some politicians kind of their past posts and tweets and stuff coming back to haunt them. And I wonder if, as more of us step into those arenas where we're being scrutinized and judged, if we will receive it differently, because we'll understand that that was a moment and then you had other moments afterwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so true. I mean, social media is changing everything, right? Just, it's changing. I'm just interested in seeing how, my parenting will become once I see my kid on social media and what he or she is doing and posting and how he or she is interacting with the world around them. So we live in a very interesting time. We live in a very interesting, time where we have to be so conscious of everything around us, even more because everyone's lives are public. It's no longer just a celebrity that has to think about their public profile, but even us as smaller individuals that are trying to do something in the world and so on.
Yeah. And so you alluded to it earlier in talking about having it all, but I would like to just circle back around to the concept of privilege in self-care. So you've been talking about parenting and entrepreneurship, and I think in your life, in both of those realms, there's a degree of agency that you have in kind of determining and making choices and being able to be protective of your time. And I was wondering how you think about and also you're married. So like, so there are all these kinds of privileges I think that you would likely acknowledge that you have. And I wonder how you think about how that factors into self-care, because on balance, the things you're talking about to do self-care in terms of being cognizant of your priorities and not giving away your time for free